because I've definitely noticed that there's been times in life that I hyper-fixate on my business, and then my family suffers, my health suffers. Or I hyperfixate on just like having a good time, and then my business suffers. So I think for me, success is even if it's just the smallest micro touch in each of these areas every day, then it's been a successful day. And I think I've taken this idea of this broad idea of success and try to really bring it down to the micro.
Hello, I'm Martin Smits, mental health trainer for entrepreneurs, and this is the podcast Redefine Success, Unscripted Stories. Podcast to inspire you to step away and let go of the societal pressure and norm of success, and to open up the conversation of mental and emotional well-being in between entrepreneurs. Let's dive into it. So welcome, Tristin. I am so excited to have you here. We have been in contact, I don't know, a good 2 years now. I still remember you reaching out to me, just connecting, and me coming into your course as a guest speaker around self-love, where we actually met Megan, Megan, the podcast from last week. And now you're here, I think I had you as a coach as well. You're an inspiring human being. You have 2 very lively kids running around, but you stay very authentic online. I haven't met you. I haven't had the chance to meet you offline yet, shamefully enough. But you just started a mushroom farm because that is something that felt aligned. And, every time that I talk to you, I really notice you're also, just like everyone else, constantly working towards creating a life that's more aligned. So when I was thinking about this podcast of Redefining Success, Unscripted Stories, you, as I think you call yourself an alignment coach. I'm not 100% sure.
Life alignment
coach. Right. Well, yeah. There we go. So I thought this was a perfect match. So yeah, welcome first of all. And I'm very excited to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me. And I was also just reflecting the other day on kind of our journey and how we connected. And yeah, I can't believe it's been 2 years since you were a guest speaker, and now here I am on your amazing podcast. So I feel really honored to be here and very excited about today's conversation.
Yeah, cool. So Anna, before the podcast, we were just talking a little bit, and Tristan was actually sharing that today there were some challenges success related. So, again, aligned with what we're talking about today. So potentially, let's just dive into it with this question. What for you for you personally, does it mean to live a successful life, to be successful?
It's such a big and beautiful question. And I think that it's evolved so many times and it's so nuanced. And sort of initially that this idea of success is very much the societal idea of success, of earning 6 figures and having the house and the family and all of these things. And yeah, it's been a really interesting unraveling and reprogramming to figure out, because I think success is such a personal, a personal definition. And we tend to want to kind of copy paste everybody else's definition. So for me, it's really been about looking at how can I touch every single area of my life, all the important areas? Because I've definitely noticed that there's been times in life that I hyper-fixate on my business, and then my family suffers, my health suffers. Or I hyper-fixate on just having a good time, and then my business suffers. So I think for me, success is even if it's just the smallest micro touch in each of these areas every day, then it's been a successful day. And I think I've taken this idea of this broad idea of success and try to really bring it down to the micro. What does that look like daily, weekly, monthly? Because what I noticed with myself, I'm a very broad thinker. I'm a very sort of big picture person, but it can also be freaking overwhelming, because then the picture of what I think I want and where I currently am causes a lot of anxiety and overwhelm. And I noticed that while holding that bigger picture is super, super important for me, I function better when it's okay, what does this really look like? I'm a little ADHD, so my energy is very different every day. And looking at that success, what does success look like for me today, I think has been hugely transformative and has helped me to manage the overwhelm a lot better. So, and that looks different every day, it's not, I think I'm trying to move away from the grandiose picture of success and leaning into, because I sort of, by Tristan's definition 10 years ago, I'm literally living inside 10 years ago's vision of what I wanted, the homestead, the family. So like technically I've achieved that version of success. And like now I'm reimagining what the next phase of that looks like. And I think it can be a little daunting and overwhelming.
But I think that what you say there is already such a massive, massive takeaway for all the listeners, and also a reminder for me, because, we can't have enough reminders in our life of, yes, it's important to have that bigger picture and like to know, to give yourself a direction. But like you said, constantly focusing on it creates overwhelm, creates a feeling of underachievement, creates so many feelings that we don't want to experience. And asking yourself, what does success look like for me today? I think that's a beautiful question, because you're not the only one. Like, we all wake up. One day I wake up and I'm super jolly and in a good mood, and another day I'm just not, and instead of constantly striving towards that one perfect day, or, it might still be an ideal, but really asking yourself, with this energy that I have today, what would a successful day mean to me? So a completely different conversation, but I'm going to just like throw it in here anyway, because I had when on my last trip, I had a really beautiful conversation with a lady, a woman, and we were having conversations about men and women, and she said it's so important for men to understand the cycles of a woman. You go as a woman through 4 different cycles, and for us to understand that, like, there's going to be a week where she's going to be more moody, and there's going to be a week where she's more happy. And like this, what you're saying, really asking yourself, like, what does being successful for me mean today, depending on the energy that you get up with in the morning. Love it, Tristin. So I love that you just open with it straight away.
I love that you brought up that story, because for me, just in terms of a reframe, looking at, I think from a societal perspective, it is very masculine dominated idea of success, which is kind of this on, super productive, your values measured by how productive you are in a day. And I've had 2 burnouts because of being in my hyper masculine and trying to fit to that, like working all hours of the night, like weekends, pushing, because I felt like that's what it meant to be successful. And I felt like rest in kind of the old Tristin 1.0, this idea of success meant pushing past my boundaries, pushing past my limits. And this little anecdote, the story that you just shared, it was a game changer for me. It was recognizing that specifically as a woman, and I think actually as human beings, even though men go through their 24-hour sort of testosterone cycle, I think just generally as beings, as human beings, we're not the same every day. And there's even different phases in our lives. Like I kind of work in these big 7-year cycles. Like every 7 years, I cut my hair, and just have like a real revamp and reevaluation every 7 years. But then bringing that down into this 28-day as a woman, I think we kind of have that beautiful framework with which to work. So looking at today, okay, I'm in my luteal phase. I maybe kind of where I'm in. I like to see it as the season. So I'm in an autumn. I'm shedding. I'm letting go. And when I look at that sort of the seasonal framing into my business, it's been so beautiful, kind of showing up differently at different phases in my business. So when I'm in a summer, I'm all on. You'll see me on social media. I'm like much more engaged. I'm much more like, hi. And then when I'm kind of in that autumn, I'm much more introspective. I'm kind of pruning. I'm looking at what isn't working. And those are the phases that I notice I can be a little bit more critical. I can be a little bit more hard on myself. And then having tools according to those seasons, I find to be really, really helpful. Of going, okay, so when I'm here, I'm going to do content when I'm in a summer, as opposed to trying to do content when I'm in a winter and I'm feeling really introspective and very introverted. And I think, yeah, it's been such a shift, switching from this idea of being on all the time to working with what is my energy today. And I think that for me, the journey of finding that fine line between excuses and honoring has been so pivotal, because we can procrastinate and make excuses for ourselves and say, oh, I need a rest. Oh, I deserve to rest. And then obviously there's moments where we need to be like, come, let's like check ourselves. We actually need to do it even though we don't feel like doing it, versus this idea of really honoring where I'm at. And for me, that's been about getting really honest, like learning to be very honest with myself, which has not been easy at times. And I think I'm still unraveling, but yeah, just getting more comfortable with being honest of like, is this an excuse or is this an honoring? Yeah.
Yeah, again, there is a lot there. What I hear, where you come back on all the time is in the end, you have your moments, like you said, where your summer, where you have all the energy, where you're going to create content, and then how you translate, you come to your autumn, where autumn. I for you, this is your female cycle. I look at that as in like the actual seasons of the year. Autumn, winter is a bit more introspective, a bit more reflecting, a bit more, okay, what has been good? What can I do better? Because you spend some more time inside at home, because summer is always outside, good weather, all of this. But what comes back is reflection, asking yourself the harder questions, just as what you said here of, yes, I know I need rest, but is that in this moment a distraction, or, and that reflection and asking yourself that question? Because when I look at my idea of success according to society, or how it's been, pushed upon me as well, of you have to be productive all the time, like 24/7, you have to be productive. And allowing yourself to also reflect, what do I need now? Do I need to be productive, or do I need to take some time for myself? I think that's a really, really beautiful thing. But like you were saying that you had that pressure, that societal pressure of the house and this and that. You are there now. But of course, I know you're constantly working on yourself. Can you pick one moment? If I know there's going to be many, but can you pick one moment where you think, this is where I noticed that is not success?
Oh, yeah, I think, like you said, it's kind of a culmination, and there are so many moments. But I think a big defining factor for me was the burnout. So I've had 2 really major burnouts where my health, where like I couldn't get out of bed, I was getting sick all the time, and I just had like zero motivation. And before that, leading up to it, it was this, I was just in that hyper-productive, if I'm not contributing, if I'm not productive, if I'm not on all the time, and that meant kind of being on social media, posting every single day. Yeah, just this, doing all the things that my peers, everyone, like when I look around, everyone, oh, they're doing that. That means that I should be doing that. And I think sitting in those burnouts, kind of in the Phoenix fire, that alchemy of like, what the hell am I doing? Like, why am I doing this? What is like, really, why am I doing this? Is this what it's about? Like, is this what this means? That I'm always going to have to be pushing in order to have, I don't know, like followers and money, and like, what is that? Like, what does this really mean? And I think that reevaluating what my values are, like what's important to me as Tristan, the individual, as a mother, as a wife, as a homesteader, like what is important for me? Because when I show up for my clients, if I'm trying to be this thing that I think I should be, as opposed to just really being me, I'm doing a disservice, not just to myself, but to every single person I come in contact with. And that was a really sobering realization, was I'm doing what I think I should be doing, but I'm burning out and I'm struggling. And then I'm showing up, and I kept feeling like I'm showing up in this really inauthentic way. And I'm showing up in a way that is so out of alignment, because I'm showing up just to show up because that's what you're supposed to do. And I think that, really just kind of sitting in the ickiness and the discomfort of going, is this really what I want? Or do I want to be serving myself, my community, my family, my clients in a way that is completely in resonance? And I think one of the big shifts for me where I really noticed I was being able to apply this, I used to never cancel a session. It didn't matter how sick I was. It didn't matter how I felt. I might have had like a fight with my husband 10 minutes before, whatever it was, I would never cancel a session, right? Because I believed I had to just show up, regardless of where I was at. And I think the first time I was like, holy crap, I can't actually do this session. I have to cancel it. Like, I'm not okay. And I said to I was just so honest with my client. I was like, you know what? I want to show up for you with 110%. And right now I have 20%. And I need to give that to myself. And they were like, of course. Like, I totally understand. And I think that was a huge shift for me when I realized that actually when the human in me connects with the human in you, that's deeply honoring and far more resonant than this idea of showing up for showing up's sake. So I think that definitely was. And I mean, there's been many moments of that, like, a culmination of moments, many examples of that. But that realization that actually me putting myself first is the most honoring thing that I can do, even as a mother, which is a weird thought. I think as moms, we tend to want to sort of self-sacrifice, and we're always pouring into everybody else's cup. And I think realizing that me taking a tiny little bit of time to, go for a walk or do something just for me is not selfish, that actually filling up a little bit is the thing that allows me to give more and show up, like really show up,
Yeah. I love that, because I think every entrepreneur who works on online presence knows that feeling of, I have to show up every day. I'm like, kind of, because I'm obviously like a mental health trainer as well. Like I know for myself how important it is to have that time for me. And, for me, it's also very specific things. And like you went through 2 burnouts. I actually didn't know that about you. Like, there's so many people that went through it. Of course, one more extreme than another. But when I hear your story, it doesn't seem like it was a light burnout. It was a full on burnout, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So, and then you were making those shifts to find, to redefine success for you, to find what is a successful life to me. How? Because there's so many entrepreneurs out there, so many people out there, like you say, mothers that pour everything into their family or in everyone else, entrepreneurs that pour their whole livelihood, everything they have, time, energy, money, everything in their business just to make it work. How important is that taking that time for you, just for you, doing something for no other reason than just satisfying yourself?
Yeah.
How important was that when it comes to you creating your successful life?
It's been everything, right? And again, like we said, it looks different every day. Does that mean like a weekend away with girlfriends? Does that mean a bath, a 20-minute bath? Right? It's going to look different every day. But for me, it was just recognizing, and like I said earlier about getting really honest about my needs. I think that as a bit of a recovering people pleaser, my conditioning from childhood was very much about, I have to make other people happy. I have to show up for other people. And my self-worth was connected to how much I'm showing up. So if you phone me and you're like, Tristan, I need you, like, book an emergency session, I would move heaven and earth to accommodate, because the belief was that if I'm not, making other people happy or being there for other people, then I'm not valuable. And I think in terms of mental shifting that idea of I'm actually really dishonoring the other person when I'm doing that from a space of depletion. I'm not showing, I'm actually dishonoring you. Like that, it was such a big, like, penny drop for me. So showing up for myself and getting honest about what do I need today? Because today maybe I need quiet, like my job is so about focusing on the other person and listening and putting all my stuff aside to just be so present for another human being. And like it requires so much energy. So my work requires that. And then my family requires that. I have 2 small children. They require my attentiveness, my stillness, And I was finding that I was just so anxious underneath all of that. Like I kept trying to show up. But on top of a lot of inner noise of like, hey, I'm feeling depleted. I'm feeling scared. I'm feeling anxious. No one's asking me how I am. I'm asking everyone how they are. And I'm listening, but there's none of that. So I think looking at those needs and recognizing that my needs are just as valuable. Actually, in my world, my needs are the most important thing because I can't fulfill anybody else's needs unless, I can't give you water if I don't have any. And so recognizing that it's the little things, like for me, my most meditative time is just like being left alone in the bath with a candle and a book. Like that's my happy space, or going for a walk or talking to a friend. And just giving myself permission to take that time has actually given me so much more time, if that makes sense.
Makes a lot of sense. And this is something that everyone should, write down, put an alarm on your phone, hang above your bed, put it on your kitchen wall, stick it on your fridge. Allow yourself to have time for you. You give yourself permission to have time for you.
Yeah.
But continue on that, because I truly believe this is one of the most important things, allowing yourself to have time for you, and what I see being a big challenge, definitely in the entrepreneurial world, because, as an entrepreneur, your job is never done. There's always something else to do. And I know many people that they're like, I actually have one client at the moment who literally works 18 hours a day and struggles to see where she can take half an hour off. And like, of course, we're working through it and we're getting somewhere. But like, what is really difficult for her, for like other clients I've worked with, for many other people, that like mostly men actually, because men are very rarely in tune with their emotions, because, we're always told we have to be strong, we can't show our emotions, otherwise we're weak. And that, again, a whole different conversation, could talk hours about. But like for people that feel in that situation of, yes, I want to allow myself to take time for me, but I wouldn't have a clue what to do.
Yeah.
And like people that are not in tune with themselves. Do you have any tools or tips or ways, like how do you check in with yourself to truly feel, what do I need in this moment?
So I think the first port of call is definitely checking in with our belief system, right? And a lot of the work that I do, as you know, is checking on those beliefs, because behavior comes from belief, right? So for me, the turning point in that belief was I'm responsible for other people's feelings, right? That was the little Tris's belief was, oh, mommy's upset. If I am silly or I'm quiet, then she's going to feel better. And so if I modulate my feelings according to the people around me, then I'm safe, and a lot of us have these very core survival strategies that we're playing out. So the first port of call really is getting in touch with what is that root belief about taking time or prioritizing your own needs. Before we even get to what those needs are, what is the belief around your needs? So for me, it was very much like my needs don't matter. My needs will be fulfilled if I meet everybody else's needs. That was really such a deep-rooted belief and how I was operating in the world without even knowing it, right? Because these beliefs are subconscious. So a lot of my behavior, I kept trying to like implement new habits and, play new strategies and do all of these things. But really my operating system was put your needs aside, if you serve everybody else and you're there for everybody else, then you'll get that money and then you'll get that success and then you'll get that time. But it was always putting myself aside in order to be there for everybody else. So the first sort of invitation, I suppose, is getting curious about what is that core operating. Look to your childhood. How did you have to navigate your home space? What do you believe about your feelings, right? And then doing some work, right? Like either with yourself, shadow work's really great for that, or working with a coach to really get clear on those beliefs. And then the second, which I've definitely found far more challenging. So once I uncovered that operating system and installed the new belief, it was then about now having to implement new habits, new behaviors. And that meant really getting comfortable with the discomfort, right? So I'm the type of person that always has to be busy. Like even if I'm watching a movie, my hands are busy. I can't be just still with myself. So things like meditation have been huge. Like it's always the recommendation, right? We get this prescription of, oh, just meditate, you'll be happy. And I feel like actually the opposite is true. It's easier to meditate when you are comfortable with yourself, right? When you start to get to know yourself, when you're aware of what those emotions are, because otherwise we're always just medicating and putting a plaster on top of a feeling. So if I am not okay with my being in my body, so that was a huge one for me as well, was feeling safe just in myself. So the busyness was a way of distracting myself from myself. I know that sounds weird, but the busier I am, I don't have to sit with my fear. I don't have to sit with my pain. I don't have to sit with my anxiety, right? So I think the hardest part for me was getting comfortable with the discomfort of going, okay, so in this moment, I'm just sitting here and I'm feeling fucking anxious, right? Like I am overwhelmed. I am struggling. Like this morning was a great example. I was feeling so stuck, overwhelmed, defeated was really like the word. And the feeling of defeated felt like a big weight on my shoulders. It's like this big gray, sticky, sludgy feeling that made my body feel like I was moving through syrup. My stomach felt knotted. I had a lump in my throat. I felt frustrated and angry, right? And so being okay with the fact that I'm feeling that way and sitting with it and like being with the feeling as opposed to wanting to, what I've kind of the default is always just busy myself and just pack it away. And then I would get like the burnout, or I'd get really depressed, or I'd get sick as a way of trying to work through those emotions, right? So the more okay I've been getting, and I think it's a muscle that you have to strengthen, you have to work out, and it's continuous work. And I think that's something important to remember, because I'm a coach. I've been doing this for 10 years. Like I'm supposed to have it all figured out, right? Like I'm supposed to have, like be a master, and we're humans. It would be kind of boring if we were just these ascended masters levitating in the sky. So I think that's an important thing to remember as well, is this like bringing in the humanness and the compassion of like, look, okay, I'm feeling really frustrated and this is not a nice feeling, but being okay that I feel the feeling, like validating the feeling. Because in the past, I just invalidated. I'd be like, I shouldn't feel this way. Why shouldn't I feel this way? This is a frustrating challenge. It's new. It's hard. Why shouldn't I feel this feeling, right? So validating that I'm struggling in this moment, validating that this is challenging in this moment, and then being with the emotion, the feeling in my body. Because I think from the masculine, and maybe you can relate to this, is, and a lot of women that are in our masculine intellectualize what we feel instead of feeling what we feel. Yeah. So I'm thinking about why I feel frustrated instead of being with the frustration, like I described it, right? Being with the actual sensation in my body. It's this color, it's this big, it's this texture. And literally just staying with the sensation until the sensation shifts, because impermanence, right? It will shift. And actually the irony is that the more we're able to sit with the discomfort, the quicker it shifts. So yeah, those would be my two big sort of takeaway. The first one being look at the internal programming, the belief construct, and then the second is getting more comfortable with the discomfort itself.
And I still remember when you were my coach, when I took you as my coach, and we went through that the first time of, what is the color of this feeling? How does it feel? How does it look? To really sit with that. And I still use that to this day, to be honest, on a regular basis, because definitely I've been raised as a more logical thinker. So I was definitely intellectualizing everything. By now I know trying to understand your feeling is also you just keep on focusing on your feeling and very often just growing that emotion. And like you say, if we allow it to be there, if we accept it to be there, we can allow it to fade away as well. So, I really, really love that share. And I'd like to, because you were saying being busy to distract you from yourself. And I think that is a very, very important thing here, like when it comes to this topic as well, because I have seen that within myself and I see that in many other entrepreneurs that using, or, people in general as well, but using your business or using your career as a means to escape any kind of discomfort. And, as long as we're escaping, we're never going to grow out of it. It's always going to keep chasing. And the second you stand still is going to catch up to you. Yeah. And, at some point, or you work yourself until you're on a burnout and, that all these emotions come up way more intense than they would be at the first time if you just face them head on. But, escaping seems like the more logical and easy choice, right? Because we don't have to go through it. But literally, like you said, Tristin, even 10 minutes or even 5 minutes sometimes of sitting with that emotion is so, so powerful. I remember I know for myself, for example, I am someone with a lot of energy, like a lot. And definitely when people come up, I feel myself rushing and I feel this emotion in my belly and, first I think it's energy, but then it becomes discomfort. But my default is let's just do more. Let's do more. Let's get up. Let's start walking around. Let's talk to people. Let's do more. Yeah. What I've learned now, when I don't always do it on the first second because I have to realize that this is what I'm doing, but I just step out of the room or I go to the bathroom or to anywhere, like a moment where I can just stand still for a moment, where I don't have to escape. And like for me, I put my hands on wherever I feel that emotion and then just really breathe into it and like allowing it to be there. And for this specific emotion, of course, there's more intense emotions. But like for this specific thing, I don't think it ever took me more than 2 minutes for this to be completely faded away and walk out of that room back into whatever I was doing in a very calm manner. And I think that is something so powerful. And again, it comes back down to what we were saying before, allowing yourself to do something just for you. Yeah. Allow yourself to realize what is there and, just do that. There was something else I wanted to add to it, but I didn't write it down. I forgot about it, but that's also life.
Yeah. Unscripted, right?
Exactly. So, you being very busy, working yourself through burnout, going back into your coaching, then, now you started up your mushroom farm. So for people who haven't noticed, like, Tristin lives in South Africa as well. So I know here in Europe, I don't know how strong that is in South Africa, but money is the number one measurement for when it comes to being successful. Like, yes, the house, the car as well, but you need to be earning good money to pay all of this. And it doesn't matter, how successful you are in the other parts of life. If you don't have your own house and you don't drive a nice car and you're not making if normal career 2K or in the coaching world, 10K a month is like the number one goal for everyone. So I love to ask the question to everyone because yes, it's very good and very beautiful to talk about, the mental and emotional challenges, which I know we can talk about for another 3 hours. But money is still a big part of our life. Like it's a point to discuss, but I would say we need it for our survival, unless, we live in the woods and we forage our own food and all. But for you personally, Tristan, how important is money in your journey to create a successful life?
That is such a beautiful question. And I think that for everybody listening, again, changing your beliefs and your relationship to money for me has been a game changer, because from that hustle culture success, similar, South Africa, I think because there's such a contrast between rich and poor, it's interesting because it's very different to kind of first world countries where you're looking around and there are so many homeless people, beggars on the street. Like poverty is so in your face that, I don't know, there's like a soberingness to it. It's like, so yes, the goal is there, but like if you have a house, I don't know, for me personally, there's the sense of like, just because I have this, like there's an instant gratitude that's kind of built into it, because you rarely see it. Like you rarely see the contrast, right? So that aside, for me, understanding my relationship to money. So with all my clients, I don't know if we did it together, but I do this process where we imagine money as a person, right? And we have to visualize. Did we do that together? Do you remember? I don't know if we did it.
I don't think so.
So we imagine money as a person, right? And you think about this energy, this money energy, like a relationship. Okay. So the very first time I did this exercise, my visual of money was this little fat Monopoly man with the monocle and the top hat. Yeah. That was the image that came up. And then you ask yourself, well, how do I feel around this character? And for me, it was like, he's so sleazy. He's got a really bad intention. He's greedy. He's like not a good vibe. I don't want to be around this guy. And then looking at how that was showing up, I was working really, really hard for my money, but my relationship to money was so icky that even when I had it, I didn't feel good about it, right? Because this internal framing was this character. Like, I don't want to be like that guy. So I would kind of keep myself, like I've always, weirdly enough, I think my spiritual beliefs around being provided for are very strong on a subconscious level, because I always had what I needed when I needed it, even though maybe it didn't feel like the thing that I wanted. I've always felt provided for. Like I've always felt like it's going to be okay. Right. And so kind of operating with the hustle, but like having that undercurrent of faith, when I did the reframe of re-meeting money. And so like now my visual is this beautiful goddess with this cape, like a cornucopia cape. And everywhere she goes, she's planting seeds and things are just growing. Like I'm like, she's my best buddy. We're a team, right? We're a partnership. So my relationship to making money is completely different. And again, bringing in this idea of seasons, right, is instead of the goal being a 10K month, right? Because some months, especially as an entrepreneur, you'll probably notice some months are seeding months. Imagine a garden, right? Some months I'm freaking weeding. And then there's a crop over there that I can always harvest. And there's like kind of this enoughness that's there. But then I'm planting new crops or I'm culling old crops. And this idea that is going to fluctuate, but it's fluctuating in a way that is nourishing and sustainable for me and for my family and for the quality of life, like the standard that I've set for myself, which is pretty high standard. So, needing to maintain that while growing and evolving to a next level has been a completely different experience. I've moved away from this hitting a 10K goal and that's the mission and the aim. For me, I think that's also what led to my initial burnout, was just this like always feeling dissatisfied with what I have because I'm looking to what's next. Okay, cool. So I hit 10K. Now what's next? As opposed to really looking at, okay, so what's the most sustainable approach to making sure that my quality of life is maintained and sustained while building legacy wealth. And letting those two things coincide and letting it be a process and letting it be fun in a way, right? Of so us starting this mushroom business, I've always felt like, or my mantra has been multiple streams of income, right? I want to have just as many streams of abundance as possible because again, that's filling in the buckets, my life standard buckets, but then also into those legacy buckets. And starting this mushroom farm been a passion of my husband's for a long time. And magically, manifestedly, investors approached us and everything is just kind of, been poured in. But it's also like with anything that's new, like a new garden, those little seedlings require so much energy, so much maintenance, so much love, right? Yes, it gets to a point, like my kids now, like my daughter's 8, she requires less, not less, no, that's the wrong word. She requires different input than she did when she was a newborn baby, right? And so kind of, if we apply that to business, when you're starting something new, so for anybody who's listening that's kind of new on their entrepreneurial journey, it's going to look different to when you're 10 years in. And you're going to have to approach it differently. So again, I think this stock standard copy-paste idea of what that looks like for somebody else to what that needs to look like for you is such an individual journey. So I know that was a very roundabout way of answering that question, but yes, money it's nourishment. It's sustenance, right? Everybody's satiation rate is different. So what you need to be sustained, what I need to be sustained is different, right? And so we can't apply this copy-paste idea. For me personally, this copy-paste idea doesn't resonate for me.
There's no one shoe fits all. I say it a million times, and I know probably everyone had it a lot of times, but it does not exist anywhere. Definitely not in this space. And I love how you talked about it in the sense of, it's nourishment and setting a standard for yourself because what do you really want? Because it aligns with how I like to think about it in like, whether it is 10K, 5K, whatever your goal, financial goal is that you have in your mind in your moment, like ask yourself, okay, why do I want this? Why do I want a job with 3K or 5K or 10K? Like, what do I want to do with this money? Why is this important to me? Because very often it's going to come down to getting something in your life. And then there's another good question to ask. Is this a desire that comes from me? Or is this an desire that has been put on me by the external world? And, whatever response you come up with, like try and figure out what you want with it. Because it's that the 10K is not going to help you feel successful, but the things you want to do with that 10K is going to help you feel more successful because they, I hope so, are aligned with, the life you want to create for yourself. So then instead of focusing on that 10K a month, like you were saying, think about, the things you want to do with it and start focusing on those things because very often you can already do many of those things way before you hit that goal. And you can already live that life that you're envisioning for yourself at that goal whilst you're still working towards it. But you are like so many people are so stuck up on that goal. And then they get there, and then they just focus on the next goal. They don't even enjoy it. So, guys, if you are listening and you notice yourself striving towards that financial goal, like ask yourself, what is the life I want to create with these kind of finances? And then see, maybe you want to, I don't know, go to a different country every week or every month. And you want to visit every country in the world. Well, okay, if you can't finance that right now yet, but maybe you can do one country every month, every 2 months or every 3 months. You can take small steps in the direction. Maybe you can explore national parks in your own country or cities in your own country. Like, what are steps you can take today to create that life? Because I hope that this is something you've been getting from this podcast so far, and also from the episode that I'm having here with Tristin. Yes, money is important because it's nourishment, it's energy, it allows us to do things. But you need to create the lifestyle. You need to go through whatever mental and emotional challenges you're going through. And then in the end, you're going to have to make the decisions to allow yourself to take the time for you in however that looks like. Because however that looks like is what a successful life means to you.
Yeah. I love that.
So,
and life's happening now. I think this is something we forget. Well, I know for myself as well, is I always felt that dissatisfaction, that's such a good word, right? The sense of it's never quite what it should be. And so what I realized, I was living my life just out of arm's reach, because cool, so now I've got this. Okay, got the car. Okay, cool, got the house. Okay, got this, right? And then it's the next thing. And it just always feels like that like you're living in that perpetual dissatisfaction of, I can't appreciate everything I've accomplished and the success that I'm living, because everything is like better, shinier, faster, the next shiny thing. And I think exactly what you said there is, we, from a kind of quantum physics perspective, the state that we're in is creating more of that. Right? So if the idea is the 10K is going to give me freedom, but I am not giving myself 20 minutes to bath and relax, that 10K is definitely not going to give me any time, because I'm not giving myself the time now. Whether it's the freedom, whether it's adventure, whether it's stability, whatever you think the money is going to give you, are you giving that to yourself in a microdose today, right? That 20 minutes today, yes, is the thing that's putting the building blocks down, the kind of yellow brick road to living a life, because life is happening now. It's not there in the future. We're creating our future from our present. And I know that sounds like a cliche, but it's a cliche for a reason, right? Because it's the truth, is we tend to, and again, I find with this idea of success, hustle culture, the indoctrination or the belief is so much about the end result, is so much about the goal, is so much about the destination, that we really, really don't. And I'm guilty of this, right? And I have to check myself daily. It's kind of like you're weeding the garden daily, right? Because it comes up all the time, is recognizing that, okay, like you said, what do I think that goal is going to give me? And how can I give it just in a tiny amount to myself today? Because you absolutely can. Like, you can give yourself 5 minutes of to practice the feeling of freedom, or to spend time with your friends, right? If you think the money is going to give you time to adventure, can I go and visit, like you said, like a national park, or go camping, which costs, maybe like 50 euros or something, right? Like, can I go and do that? Can I permit myself? Can I give myself permission to do that with the means that I currently have? That's how we accumulate more. That's how we kind of move up the ladder, if you will.
Yes.
There's a quote that I absolutely love by Bashar. I don't know if you've heard this. When you learn to do a lot with a little, or when you learn to do more with less, you can have more for less, right? And when you really think about that, right, we've just renovating our house, and we bought it 5 years ago, and there's been things that we've been really wanting to do, but it's like, we don't have the money. It's like, it's a big outlay to renovate. And the shift in perspective was like, okay, but can we paint one wall? Just one. And we buy 1 liter of paint and paint a wall. And for the last couple of months, that's what we've been doing. We've just been one little space at a time. And it's so crazy what we've done in this very short space of time by breaking down the goal into like bite-sized chunks, as opposed to it being this, we have to renovate. That's so vague. We have to do this whole big thing that feels expensive and scary, like traveling to a country a new country every month. Like that feels so big. Maybe it's very far away from where you currently are, but how to bring that closer, closer, closer so that it's in your hand as opposed to out of arm's reach, you know?
Exactly. 100%. And of course, that what you're saying there of building that ladder is, just as true as for renovation as it is for growing your business, because we always, I hope everyone listening likes to dream big.
Yes.
And, those big dreams, like we said at the very beginning, can sometimes be overwhelming. And we have to break those down to, like you were saying, on what is success for me today and what can I do today? And like a little, I really want to add some extra attention to this because of course, Tristan and me are now talking about take time for you, do this, do that, do that. But remember what Tristan said in the beginning, what I, very much preach as well, of be honest with yourself. You wanting to do this in this moment, is that a distraction or is that because you need it? Because yes, I want to do, in my ideal world, I'm doing fun things 24/7 a day. Yeah. But that's not life. That's not what's going to grow my business. And just as in business, be honest with yourself. Are you going to work on this thing right now on your computer, on your business? Because otherwise, your business is going to crumble. Or is this a distraction of the discomfort? Because that's something that I wanted to share way before that where I said I forgot about it, is someone once said to me, we as human beings have to learn to be bored again.
Yes.
Because definitely I'm not the best at it as well. Like I take my phone to the toilet very often because I see that as me time, but I shouldn't, because sitting on the toilet, having those 1-2 minutes for men, often more than 2 minutes. But anyway, like that time for me, sitting in a bus stop, at a waiting room for the doctors, wherever it may be. Sometimes, I really want to invite and encourage everyone. The next time you're sitting there, instead of taking out your phone, allow yourself to just sit there, observe, not just observe externally, also observe internally, and just be there. And no, it might not give you that dopamine as seeing that funny video on Facebook or Instagram, but it is going to, doing this over time, over and over again, it is going to give you a connection with yourself. And it's going to slowly help you understand yourself better, because you're going to see things. You might be triggered by something that's happening there, and then asking yourself, hey, what is this trigger? Huh? Be curious, to observe and be curious. But I know these are topics that we can go, like I said before, we can go into very deep, but there's one more thing I'd love to cover with you here. And that's around, because we're talking about that societal idea of success. And you, me, and every guest that has been and will be coming on this podcast is trying to create their own way of success. It has created their own way of successful life. But for many people, that means making a change in their life. Ooh, we have to be different. We have to do something different than society is telling us to do. Scary. Yeah. And we are going to put ourselves in a position to be judged. How did you deal with that moment?
Oh, that is such a good one. So I feel like for me personally, I've always had a very loud inner critic. And the little bit of work that we did on all your characters, remember we met your inner child and the inner critic. So our inner critic is one of our most formative survival strategies, right? And when we see it like that the comparison, so oh, everyone's doing that, I need to belong, I need to fit in, I need to have that. So the inner critic is really formed as a survival strategy to feel like we're belonging. And when we deviate from that path, it feels like a death. It literally feels lonely, it feels scary, it feels overwhelming. And so for me, a huge shift was kind of reframing my inner critic and giving it new roles and new responsibilities. So my inner critic became my quality control manager, and he's great, masculine. He's fabulous. I'm very dyslexic, so spelling is a big thing for me. And before it would be like this crippling, like I can't send out that piece of content because if I make a spelling mistake, I'm going to die. I'm going to be mortified. Like, oh, I can't do this, And so my quality control, that little inner voice that wants me to kind of fit in, he comes up and he's like, Tristan, let's just do a little risk analysis here. Let's just check things. Let's make sure it's good. And working with that part of me has been a huge game changer of recognizing, okay, it is scary. It's humans are programmed to stay in the familiar, to stay in the known zone, right? Because that's where it's safe. And so anything outside of that is so uncomfortable, is so terrifying that we kind of default back to old habits, right? So I love what the example you used about being bored, right? It's uncomfortable to sit and twiddle your thumbs. And I see it with my kids as well. It's like, I challenge them often to be like, they're like, oh, I want to watch a show. And I'll be like, no, just figure it out. Figure it out. Do something. And then I come back and they're sitting there building Lego worlds and like in this elaborate game. And I think it is so, so important, like you said, to get okay with the discomfort. Like we've said in different versions throughout this podcast is how it is going to be uncomfortable to do something out of the known zone. It's going to be uncomfortable. That inner voice, that inner critic is going to get loud when you do something different, when you think differently, because we're trying to keep ourselves in this track, in this lane. So getting more and more okay. And I think developing a sense of humor around those parts that are like this morning, I had a total freaking meltdown. I was like, what is it, grimacing at my laptop and being like, I want to smash my laptop. I was feeling so frustrated. And then I got to a point that I was like, this is hilarious. And I literally laughed out loud. And that cracking for a minute, I've been like, okay, I'm being honest with myself. This is uncomfortable. This is frustrating. I don't want to be doing this. Number one, it's okay that I feel this way. So it's that validation. Number two, it's the curiosity of like, okay, what about this? What about this is coming up for me? And then just sitting with that feeling of discomfort, having a little bit of playfulness with it, sitting there until it moves, like you said, kind of removing yourself from the room, whatever it is that you like, so for me, it was like my husband's like, step away from the laptop. And then my stubbornness was like, no, I will just keep going. And he was like, just go for a walk. And I wouldn't. I was stuck in that stubbornness. And I just sat there. And then eventually I laughed. And that was like kind of the cracking moment for me where I was like, okay, cool. Okay. I see what I'm doing. And it's okay that I'm doing that. And it's like, I can understand why. So yeah, I think definitely not taking ourselves so damn seriously for me personally, has been a huge thing. And that inner critic the ego wants to be like, I need to be important. People need to see me as somebody that they can respect and take seriously. And actually, in today's very Insta world, I think what we're valuing more and more and more, and what I love about what you're doing, and I'm also trying to do with my podcast, is just showing a bit more realness and a bit more like honesty with the struggle, like the behind the scenes stuff, as opposed to everything being so filtered and glamorized. It gives us this artificial idea of what success looks like. And I think that just normalizing that we're human. Yeah.
And I think it couldn't be said much better of, don't take ourselves so damn serious. Don't think that the whole world is looking and paying attention to us, because they aren't.
Yeah.
Yes. And like, no matter what you do, people will always judge. Always, 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 always. It's shamefully enough, it's the default of us human beings to judge others, because I believe because subconsciously it makes, two people judging another person makes the other two people feel closer in a very weird and strange way that I really don't like, but it's still the reality. So stop taking yourself serious. And I think that is a very beautiful note to to close with that, because I know there's so many people that are stuck in that mode. So no, amazing. So I would love to hear from you. Imagine there is someone, what example am I going to take? Let's say, because we've been talking about entrepreneurship a lot in this podcast, let's say there's like entrepreneurs in general, let's say there's an entrepreneur there and is escaping from their business, is like feeling burnout closing in, because that's a position where you've been, might have a successful business, but in life really feels unsuccessful, feels unhappy, feels unfulfilled. To this specific person, what advice would you give to him or her in this moment?
Pause. Our natural inclination is to want to push and keep going forward. And I've found my greatest pivots, and again, those pauses will be forced pauses or they'll be voluntary. And I think my advice is giving yourself permission to have a voluntary pause, because otherwise illness, loss, pain is the way that we learn those lessons, because we have to pause, right? We have to inhale or exhale. Like it's part of the process. To pause and reflect is just as important as going and pushing and putting your foot on the pedal. And so I think that if you're feeling that way, if you're feeling overwhelmed, when you're feeling stuck, the natural inclination will be to either completely go into a hole, and then it feels like you're really kind of retreating into that space, and then it's hard to scramble out of it, or it's to keep pushing, forcing yourself. And so my advice is just pause, just take a breath, and then from that space of acknowledging the discomfort, acknowledging where you are currently, and without invalidating what you think you should be doing or any of those things, just kind of really sitting with it, then taking a step from there and either seeking support, leaning into your community, leaning into working with the coach, leaning into workshops, whatever it is. I think because I was a bit stubborn, I kind of believed I had to do it all by myself. And that was the measure of success, was like how hard I hustle. And recognizing that actually the most courageous thing sometimes is to say, I need a bit of help. I need a hug. I need some support. I need a chat, whatever it is, right? So first pause, then lean in, and however that looks, leaning in, friends, community, coach, whatever it is. And it's okay. Like, I think really just acknowledging that it's part of the process. And like I said, the kind of Insta world goes, oh, look, they went from zero to hero in a couple of posts. It's BS. There is so much hustle. There's so much stress. There's so much pain behind the scenes. And so whatever you're feeling right now, like, it's okay. Like, it's part of the process, part of the growing pains. It's part of being human. Yeah.
I definitely took away a lot. I hope everyone took away a lot. The biggest things that get stuck for me from after this conversation is pause, get to know yourself, be honest, be extremely honest. Like, you can't find the right word, but anyway, as honest as you can possibly be with yourself. Yeah. Learn to be bored, get to know yourself, and ask yourself why. Why do you want this? Why do you want that? And, dive deeper.
Yeah.
Amazing. This has been an amazing conversation. But before we close off, I'd love to hear from you as well, because, Tristan, you are an amazing coach. So first, where can people find you? But also you with your mushroom farm, and it's not new anymore, but, it's still fairly new. I'd love to hear from you. What are your goals and aspirations, where you're working towards, and that scary big goal that you try not to focus on? I'd love to hear what that big scary goal is for you.
Oh, well, because I have so many different little balls in the air, I think the big scary goal with the mushroom farm so we're currently producing about 10 kgs a week and we're scaling to 100. And that gap between where we are right now to that's what my meltdown was all about this morning. Was like, I was just struggling to see from our current capacity, from our current input, how that jump is possible. And so, yeah, the process of like actually just sitting with, okay, that is terrifying because like, this is what it's requiring of us right now to produce 10. So to literally what is that? 10x? 10x? Right, maths is like to significantly scale it is really, really scary. And I'm definitely not clear on exactly what that looks like in terms of that. But I'm exactly what we said today, trying to approach it with that, with a bit of lightness, with a bit of play, with faith, with curiosity, with patience as well. I think for me is a huge thing, is just being patient that things unfold in their own timing. Like, when being pregnant, it takes almost 10 months, right? The baby doesn't just from conception, doesn't just pop out. A seed doesn't just pop out, so having that patience. So yeah, that's my big, juicy, scary dream with and getting it into restaurants, letting it be, the best, because it is. They are the tastiest, most delicious oyster mushrooms, and exploring with other mushrooms as well. So that's on that side. Coaching wise, it is also pretty scary because for me, my whole business has been built on word of mouth. And I've always had, like, I call in clients and they're there, right? And so switching from this time for money kind of business model structure that I've been working on to course creation, to putting myself out there in a completely new and different way is terrifying. But yeah, I've got a couple of courses. So you were a guest speaker on my Life Aligned program, and that is relaunching again in January. And so there's a lot of behind the scenes work that is going into getting that up and running. Hadn't launched it since back then 2 years ago. So yeah, it's also that feeling of like, oh, it's been a long time and I have done it before, but I'm going to do it in a different way. That's kind of scary. So yeah, that's happening. And then I've got my Wayfinder course, which is all about learning to work with your emotions and becoming your own finding that inner compass to be your own Wayfinder. That is up and running, and I will share the links if anybody is interested in that. And then I've got, YouTube Life Aligned Academy. So if anybody has resonated, you can follow me either on Instagram or on my YouTube channel. And I will also pop a discovery link if somebody, wants to kind of look at their beliefs or play with what's holding them back. They can I'll pop that discovery call link so people can reach out and we can just have a chat, see where you're at. Yeah.
Yeah. That's amazing, Tristin. So all the links that Tristin talked about, they will be in the description of this podcast. So, definitely go and check her out. I've also been a guest on her podcast, and will be again in the future. And again, like also how often I've thought, I'd love to dive deeper into this. I definitely see a chapter 2 of this conversation coming somewhere in the future. So.
Yeah.
Yeah. With that being said, I just really want to thank you, Tristin, for this beautiful, enlightening and energy giving conversation, because it definitely feels so energized right now to go and mow the lawn.
Oh, woo-hoo! Thank you. I love that. Thank you so much. And I just want to say as well that I've been watching you now for the last 2 years, and just your ability to pivot and shift and just how community centric you are. I just want to thank you for your contribution to the world, to the community, to entrepreneurs. It is so needed, the work that you're doing, the platforms that you're giving people to just connect and to not feel so lonely is so needed in this day and age. And just really grateful to be in your sphere and be connected. So thank you so much for having me here. Thank you everybody for listening. I always value people's time, like in a world where we're feel so time deficit. So if you've listened all the way, thank you. I hope you've taken, I hope you have some little nuggets of gold to take away. And definitely I think we have our podcast next month on my channel. So yeah, excited for that conversation as well. And thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
I hope you enjoyed this episode and thank you for listening. If you want to make sure to support us, then subscribe, like, or share this episode with someone that you think would benefit from hearing this story. And if you can't get enough of this content and you want more, you want to connect with more people, make sure to check out the Thrive Tribe through the link in the description. And I hope to connect with you there. It's an entrepreneurial community where personal and professional well-being comes together, where we should have open, honest, and vulnerable conversations whilst also working individually and as a team on our business to grow together as a tribe. So make sure to check out that link. See you in the next episode.